Airport, staff kicked. John Kennedy, wife, but regretted everything. When John arrived, Elizabeth Kennedy moved through the crowded airport terminal with a quiet urgency, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. The hum of early morning travelers surrounded her, businessmen in pressed suits, families dragging oversized suitcases, and college students with earbuds dangling from their necks. She adjusted the strap of her carry-on bag, the weight of it digging into her shoulder. She was exhausted, her body running on little more than adrenaline and a lukewarm coffee she'd grabbed from a kiosk near the entrance. The past few weeks had been a blur of commitments, charity events in New Orleans, a community meeting in Shreveport, and a last-minute speaking engagement in Houston. Her suitcase hadn't been unpacked in days, the contents a jumbled mix of blouses, toiletries, and paperwork she hadn't had time to organize. But today wasn't about schedules or speeches. Today was personal. Elizabeth was headed to Baton Rouge for a family gathering, a milestone celebration for her niece's graduation from LSU. It was the kind of event she'd promised not to miss no matter how packed her calendar had become. Her flight was set to board in less than an hour, and she needed to move quickly. The Southwest Airlines check-in counter loomed ahead, a bright blue sign glowing under the fluorescent lights. Elizabeth approached the desk, her phone already open to her boarding pass. She wore a simple navy dress with a light cardigan, her hair pulled back in a neat bun. Despite the fatigue etched into her face, she carried herself with a calm professionalism, the kind honed from years of navigating high-pressure situations. She set her carry-on bag down and slid her phone across the counter to the young man behind the desk. His name tag read Tyler, and he barely looked up from his screen as he took her phone. "I'm on flight 1423 to Baton Rouge," Elizabeth said, her voice steady but clipped. "I'd like to check my carry-on." Tyler tapped a few keys, his fingers moving lazily across the keyboard. Then he frowned, his brow furrowing as he stared at the monitor. "Huh," he muttered, almost to himself. "You're not in the system." Elizabeth blinked, her grip tightening on her coffee cup. "That can't be right," she said, keeping her tone even. "I checked in online 2 hours ago. The boarding pass is right there." She nodded toward her phone, which still displayed the QR code for her flight. Tyler glanced at the screen, then back at his monitor, his expression unreadable. "Well, there's been a change," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Your seat's been reassigned. You'll have to wait." Elizabeth's heart gave a quick thud, but she didn't let it show. Reassigned to what she asked, her voice still calm, but now carrying a slight edge. Tyler didn't answer right away. Instead, he waved to another employee behind the counter, a woman with a tight ponytail and a lanyard swinging from her neck. "Hey, can you take a look at this?" He called, his tone casual, as if Elizabeth's question was an inconvenience. The woman, whose name tag read Sarah, walked over and glanced at the screen. "She's flagged for random review," Sarah said flatly, barely looking at Elizabeth. "We need to recheck your credentials." Elizabeth's jaw tightened, but she kept her composure. "Excuse me," she said, her words measured. "I've flown this route multiple times this year. This has never happened." Sarah shrugged her eyes, already drifting back to the screen. "It's routine," she said, her tone dismissive. "We just need to verify some things." Elizabeth felt a sharp pang in her chest, a mix of frustration and disbelief. "This isn't routine," she said, her voice firm but not raised. "I've shown you my boarding pass and ID. What's the issue?" Tyler leaned forward now, his earlier nonchalance replaced by a slight smirk. "Ma'am, if you don't calm down, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside," he said, his words laced with a condescension that made Elizabeth's skin prickle. She raised an eyebrow, her gaze locking onto his. "Calm down," she repeated. "I'm asking a question. That's all." Tyler stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "Please, "Stand over there," he said, pointing to a spot near the end of the counter. The passengers in line behind her began to notice their eyes darting between Elizabeth and the counter. A few whispered to each other, and one man pulled out his phone, subtly angling it toward the scene. Elizabeth stepped aside, her arms crossing tightly over her chest. She wasn't about to give Tyler the satisfaction of seeing her rattled. Her government ID was still in her hand, the official seal glinting under the terminal lights. "I'm not hiding anything," she said, holding up the badge. "This is an official trip. Can someone explain what's going on?" Sarah glanced at the ID, but didn't take it. "ID doesn't override protocol," she said, her voice cold. Elizabeth felt a sinking sensation in her gut. This wasn't a simple mix-up. There was something deliberate in the way they were treating her, something that felt